What's going on, guys? Here it's Kyle. I'm gonna make a video. Okay. I want to make a video on a top 12 list of what I think are some of the best characters slash gimmicks in wrestling history. Top 12. I could make the list longer, but I don't want to make this too long and drawn out. So I've shortened the list on what I thought were some of the best characters slash or gimmicks in the history of wrestling. And yeah, so because it's 12, I may make this into two parts. If not, if I have enough time, then I'll just get everything done in this one. So keep in mind, if I do half, then I might make another video. Not might, but I'll cut it into two parts if I have enough time. So starting off at number 12 for one of the best characters of all time, the Ultimate Warrior. I liked Ultimate Warrior a lot when I was a kid. Sure, Ultimate Warrior was not the most technically sound wrestler in the ring. He was very stiff as a board and jacked up on the roids. But, this whole colorful gimmick and stuff he had on, and how he'd run into the ring, you hear this music with a guitar riff that just gets you pumped out. He was just shaking on the ropes, which Batista stole, by the way. He just really, get you in that warrior-like spirit. He just really got you pumped up and excited. So I definitely think Warrior was one of the greatest characters of all time. Number 11, in terms of a gimmick, one of the greatest gimmicks of all time. Some of you guys may agree, others may not. Fact of the matter is, when it was hot, it was hot. Number 11 is one of the greatest gimmicks, Goldberg's undefeated streak. A lot of people bash Goldberg, like, oh, well, wrestling is predetermined, all he ever does is just squashes people. But you know what? During the time that Goldberg had his undefeated streak, it was something fresh, it was new, it had never been done before in the history of wrestling, and still has not been replicated to this day, his undefeated streak. And it really played, a part into Goldberg's monster, juggernaut persona. So the undefeated streak, I think, is one of the greatest gimmicks of all time. Should it be replicated again in professional wrestling? I think absolutely not. That was a one-time deal thing. I think that should happen. That should happen. It should never happen again. And WCW was smart to capitalize on that. Number 10 is one of the greatest characters slash gimmicks, Roddy Piper. To me, Roddy Piper, I consider as one of the greatest, if not the best, heel of all time. Roddy Piper could draw heat like no other wrestler during this time. To me, I just love his whole gimmick, and he had excellent mic skills. Excuse me, how he played dirty and everything else. So Roddy Piper's number 10 on my list. Number 9 is the Heartbreak Kid. Shawn Michaels is one of the greatest wrestling characters. Michaels breaking onto his solo career, into the whole, the Marty. Breaking up from Marty Jannetty and, becoming the pretty boy, heartthrob that all the girls loved. He had the glittery, different costume designs, and, just really played up into, that heartbreak character really well. Shawn Michaels is number 9 on my list for one of the greatest characters of all time. Number 8 on my list is one of the greatest characters of all time, Scott Hall as Razor Ramon. Now, a lot of people, always say, it was Scott Hall and Nash, doing the whole NWO angle, and Steve Austin that made, that really made people cheer for the bad guys or like bad guys. But to me, honestly, in my personal opinion, I think before the whole NWO thing started with Hall and Nash, and even before Austin became really hot, I think Scott Hall acting as the Razor Ramon gimmick, the Cuban, I think that to me was the first time really a heel character became cool to like. Razor Ramon, to me, he was supposed to be the Cuban, and the way he talked was just smooth. Not off from Scott Hall being himself, but the Razor Ramon gimmick I thought was really really cool at the time. That it came out. It was different. It was sleek. It was slick. Everything else. So Razor Ramon, number 8, or Scott Hall as Razor Ramon, is one of the greatest wrestling characters of all time. Number 7 on my list is Ric Flair. Ric Flair limousine ride, high profiling, all that. Ric Flair played his character Ric Flair, I mean, literally to life. One of the greatest characters, I think, of all time. He played off, being the I guess you could say the high roller or the big baller, moneymaker type guy. Just really flashy. Ric Flair really actually the catalyst, and being one of the first flashy wrestlers, really. Unless you're talking about Gorgeous George, who was before Ric Flair's time. He was kind of really like the first, but Ric Flair really took that flashy lifestyle and persona and character and took it to a whole other level. So Ric Flair's number 7 on my list. Number 6 on my list for one of the greatest wrestling characters of all time is the icon Sting. Sting, coming in with the beach blonde hair, surfer boy like look. That was a great hyper, energetic character. And then as times changed, Sting changed along with the times as well. With the darker, more anti-hero type of like, kind of like look, which is the current thing we have now here in TNA. But Sting is one of the, I consider one of the greatest characters of all time because he is still loved to this day. Sting's character is what he calls to be timeless. Regardless of how old he is, Sting still gets huge pops and still gets huge reactions from crowds. So that says a lot about his character. Number 5 on my list is one of the greatest characters, Randy Savage Macho Man. Oh, yeah. I really can't, what else to explain about this Randy Savage Macho Man? Great, awesome character, flashy, a little bit. Absolutely love his promos, and his deep, raspy voice. Just really played into that character really well. So Randy Savage Macho Man is number 5 on my list. Number 4 on my list is one of the greatest characters of all time is Hulk Hogan. Even though personally I don't really like this man, business-wise, I always give credit where credit's due. Hulk Hogan, one of the greatest characters of all time. Not only in his years in WWE with saying your prayers and your vitamins, being the superhero, that saves the day, kind of like what we have now in John Cena. But even him, how he reinvented himself and went the complete left field and went from being one of the most beloved heroes to probably one of the best heel character gimmicks of all time during the NWO, his NWO run. So Hulk Hogan is number 4 on my list. He sold out millions and millions of mercs, during his prime. So Hulk Hogan's number 4 on my list. Number 3 on my list is one of the greatest characters of all time, Stone Cold Steve Austin. Stone Cold Steve Austin, like the Goldberg streak, I think is a character or gimmick that should be replicated only once, never again. Austin really playing the badass rebel / anti-hero was definitely, I think, the thing, along with the whole NWO stuff, that really changed the landscape of wrestling because once again, it was something different. You never had a wrestler who really kind of played both sides of the fence. For every bad guy he gives a stun or two, or the finger, he'll equally give to a babyface. Never really had that before in a wrestling character. Stone Cold Steve Austin playing that persona, that heel / babyface persona. Absolutely tremendous. And because of it solidified Steve Austin as one of the greatest wrestlers of all time. Number 2 on my list, one of the greatest wrestling characters of all time, Mick Foley, as himself, Mick Foley, Mankind, Dude Love, and Cactus Jack. You can't get any better than that. Mick Foley is truly a pioneer. I think if you were to make a list of the greatest characters of all time, you have to put Mick Foley on your top list. You have to. For Mick Foley to be able to play his 3 different personas, and even sometimes himself, so that's 4 really, to be able to play his 4 different personas and have each character and play each character differently. Not one character never really overlaps into the other. Meaning like Dude Love never acted like Cactus Jack, or Cactus Jack never had any type of similarities to Mankind. Each character had their own different persona, and for Mick Foley to be able to, I guess you could say subconsciously in his mind, to just, stay true to that one particular character without this one character overlapping with the other. Just some truly genius stuff. Mick Foley truly is one of the greatest minds in the wrestling business to be able to do something like that, and to come up with all these different personas and to make them each different, not even just different, but even the promo skill-wise. Mankind, Cactus Jack, and Dude Love none of their promos were ever the same. Dulo's promos were always about, love and being a little hippie. Cactus Jack's were a little bit psychotic. Mankind's gimmick was, Mike Skills was all promos were always dark and eerie. So just some great stuff there. So Mick Foley, I consider as number 2 is one of the greatest wrestling characters of all time. Number 1 on my list is one of the greatest wrestling characters of all time. Once again, some of you guys may agree or disagree with this, but it is The Undertaker. The reason why I put Undertaker as number 1 on my list is because no other wrestling character that's lasted this long in this business like The Undertaker still gets a huge reaction, still gets a huge pop than I've ever seen, and as long as I watch wrestling. Undertaker coming in WWE from WCW in 1990 or 91 or something like that. That's when he had the whole goth-like image, and had the misty, whirly-like powers. Ever since that day, Undertaker has been just an absolutely beloved character in the wrestling business. And sure, he had the American badass gimmick from 2000 to 2002 or 3, but putting the American badass gimmick aside and just comparing the Dead Man gimmick, just the Dead Man gimmick alone, has really, truly, it's truly stand the test of time, because for just as many people who love the Undertaker and his whole, unworldly, godly-like powers from the early 1990s and early 2000s, they still love it to this day in 2012. When Undertaker comes back to WrestleMania, he's still going to be beloved. He's still going to have, huge pops. And I really think that says a lot about not only the character, but the person who plays the character, the Undertaker himself. Anytime, for as long as he's been in the wrestling business, and his character never really gets stale and boring at all. In the wrestling business, a lot of wrestlers have to always change their gimmick, change their look, to try to keep up with the times and everything else. Undertaker, aside from the American Badass gimmick, never really had to change his character too much, or really alternate or do anything really different with it, because people never get tired of Undertaker's gimmick or character. They still love it. No one's ever said, "Oh, Undertaker needs to change this up or do something different with this or that." People still love and respect Undertaker as the Undertaker, as the dark horse that you want to say that he is. So Undertaker, to me, is the number 1 best gimmick / character, I think, of all time, because it's lasted this long for so many years. I mean, I'm 22 now, and I still love Undertaker's dark, character and allure and gimmick. So this is my top 12 list of best gimmicks and or / characters in wrestling history. Like I said, I couldn't make this longer. So if anyone wants to, how come I didn't put The Rock on there? The reason why I didn't put Rock on there, Rock was a character somewhat, but Dwayne Johnson, what you saw with The Rock is actually Dwayne Johnson. So that's the only reason why. Steve Austin played, a rebel, but realistically in real life, that's not who Steve Austin really pretty much is. I mean, he had some realism to the character, by being himself. But in terms of Rock, Dwayne Johnson, Rock is Dwayne Johnson. Dwayne Johnson is The Rock. It's not like you have Dwayne Johnson here and then you have the character The Rock. It's like hand in glove. And these I'm just talking about specific just characters on this list. So I really consider Rock as a character. I consider Rock as Dwayne Johnson and Dwayne Johnson as The Rock. One entity, one person. That's just being himself. He's not hiding behind a gimmick or anything. So, so this is my list. Let me know what you guys think. Comment, subscribe. Peace out.